When I was young, I believed strength was about muscles, about speed, about power. But over time, I discovered something deeper. The greatest obstacle to becoming strong is not the opponent in front of you. It's the ego inside you. Ego is loud. Ego wants to be seen. Ego wants to prove. But a true warrior doesn't need to prove. He needs to grow. And growth begins when you empty your cup. I remember one day, a man came to me for training. His eyes were proud, his posture stiff, his mind already full. Before I could teach him anything, he was busy telling me what he knew, how good he was, how strong, how fast. I poured tea into his cup. The cup filled, then it overflowed. Still, I kept pouring. He shouted, "Stop! It's spilling over." I looked at him and said, "Like this cup, your mind is already full. How can I teach you anything? Unless you first empty it." That is the way of the warrior. Before you can rise, you must humble yourself. Before you can learn, you must let go of the need to already know. Ego is the invisible wall that keeps a man trapped. You think you're moving forward, but you're walking in circles. Because ego will always whisper, "You're already great. You don't need to change." But the greatest danger for a fighter is not defeat. It is believing there's nothing left to learn. When I trained, I approached every day like a student. Even when I was a teacher, even when people called me master, I never allowed the word master to live in my heart. Because the moment you think you have arrived, your journey ends. The ego wants comfort. It wants recognition. But discipline wants growth. And growth only happens in humility. Ego is heavy. It fills your mind with noise. And a noisy mind cannot flow. That's why I said, empty your cup so that it may be filled. Become devoid to gain totality. When my cup was full of pride, I couldn't learn. But when I emptied it, the universe poured wisdom into me. People think strength is loud, but strength is quiet. Strength doesn't need to shout. Strength listens, learns, adapts. Ego is rigid. Water is formless. That's why I chose to be like water. Because water doesn't argue with the rock. It flows around it, and in time, it wears the rock down to nothing. I never wanted to belong to a single style. Karate, Wing Chun, boxing. They all had limits, and I refused to be trapped in a box built by someone else's ego. I respected every style, but I bowed to none, because truth is bigger than any single form. The ego says, "My way is the best," but the warrior says, "Every way has something to teach me." That's why I created Jeet Kune Do, not to show the world a new cage, but to break all cages, to remove the limits ego creates, to move like water, to live like truth. Jeet Kune Do was not just a fighting style. It was a rebellion against the ego. I've seen great fighters lose because their ego blinded them. They believed no one could beat them. And so they stopped evolving. They froze. And in battle, frozen men break. A warrior who cannot learn is already defeated. Because the battlefield never stays the same. The world moves. The opponent adapts. And only those who remain students survive. When I stood before a new student, I didn't look for muscles. I didn't look for speed. I looked for humility. Because if you humble, I can teach you anything. If your cup is full, I can teach you nothing. Ego will tell you that letting go makes you weak, that bowing your head means surrender. But a real warrior knows humility is not surrender. It is strategy. The bamboo bends in the storm and survives. The rigid tree breaks. When you empty your cup, you make space for power. Real power, the kind that does not need to prove itself. There were times when I, too, felt my ego rising. When fame came, when people cheered my name, when I saw myself on the big screen, the world tried to crown me, but I refused to wear that crown, because the moment you believe the myth, you stop growing, and the warrior who stops growing is already dying. I reminded myself daily, stay empty, stay ready, because an empty cup is always ready to be filled, and the full cup can hold nothing more. Ego clings to what it knows. The warrior lets go so he can discover what's next. Humility is not weakness. Humility is power under control. It's the blade that hides quietly in its sheath, the river that cuts through mountains without making a sound. I trained with the greatest respect for every fighter I met, because every fighter carried a lesson inside him. And the wise man learns from everyone, even those who stand against him. When I said, be water, I meant more than movement. I meant to live with no shape, no ego, no fixed identity, to remain free, to flow into whatever shape is required. The ego is like a prison. The water escapes. Many came to me expecting a secret technique, a magic move, but the secret was never in the punch. It was in the emptying the ego, emptying the noise, emptying the need to prove. When the cup is empty, the body moves faster, the mind becomes clear, the soul becomes sharp. When I step into training, I am not Bruce Lee the star. I am not Bruce Lee the legend. I am a student. I am nothing, and because I am nothing, I can become anything. That is the power of emptiness. Ego makes you defend illusions. You start fighting not to win, but to protect your image. But warriors fight for truth, and truth doesn't need to be protected. It simply is. When you empty your cup, you stop fearing, because ego fears loss. Ego fears looking weak. But the warrior with no ego has nothing to lose. And a man with nothing to lose is unstoppable. I learned that when I let go of who I thought I was supposed to be, I became everything I was meant to be. I saw men build walls around themselves with pride. They guarded those walls with their lives. But the walls keep the world out and keep you trapped in. I chose to burn those walls down, to leave open, to keep learning, to remain a student always. People said to me, Bruce, you've already made it. But I never believed in making it. The path has no finish line, and ego loves to stop at the first trophy. But trophies rust, ego fades, only growth remains. Emptying your cup is not a one-time act. It's a daily war, because ego will return, whispering, you're special, you know enough, you're done. That is the voice of death. Every day, I emptied the cup again. Every day, I bowed before the unknown. Every day, I reminded myself, the real master is the eternal student. To the warrior listening to my voice right now, you must choose. Hold on to your ego and remain trapped, or empty your cup and become unstoppable. Ego will make you rigid. Humility will make you fluid. And only the fluid survive the storm. I am not a legend because I was the strongest. I am a legend because I remained a student, because I chose to learn when others chose to boast, because I empty my cup again and again and again. Humility opened every door that ego tried to close. It gave me the power to listen, to grow, to break patterns, to flow beyond every style and every cage. That is why I say, empty your cup, stay formless, be water, become truth. I am Bruce Lee. I am not full. I am empty. And because I am empty, I am limitless.